Imagine a parasite that, well, it doesn't just eat you.
Right. It's way worse than that.
Yeah, it like silently hijacks your internal biology. It forces your body to become its own personal greenhouse.
And then, it violently erupts out of your forehead to spread its spores to the next victim.
Which sounds exactly like a pitch for a sci-fi horror movie. I mean, it's terrifying.
Oh, absolutely. It sounds completely made up.
But for you, the listener joining us on today's deep dive, this isn't science fiction. It is actually the origin story of one of the most promising cancer-fighting compounds on Earth.
Yeah, which is just a wild pivot, right?
Oh.
It's from horror movie monster to medical marvel.
Exactly. So today, we are delving into a 2013 review article by researchers Tuli, Sandhu, and Sharma, and it explores the pharmacological and therapeutic potential of a fungus called Cordyceps.
Which is a fascinating piece of research. It
Yeah.
really lays out the whole picture.
It does. Our mission today is to figure out how this bizarre, insect-invading fungus became one of the most sought-after medical marvels in the entire world.
Because it's a massive biological paradox.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because, like you said, we're looking at a paradox. We have an organism that is a ruthless, deadly parasite to insects, right?
Right.
But simultaneously, it holds the potential to be a literal life-saving medicine for humans.
Yeah, and to understand how it heals humans, you first have to understand the sheer brutality of how it grows.
The brutality is real.
It really is. The life cycle of this fungus is, well, it's the engine that produces these incredible medicinal compounds.
So the specific fungus highlighted in the research is Cordyceps militaris, right?
Yes, exactly. And the researchers note it belongs to the phylum Ascomycota, specifically the order Hippocryalis.
Okay, rather than just dropping taxonomy on everyone, let's look at what that classification actually means for the fungus's weapon systems.
That's a good way to frame it. Weapons.
Because being part of Ascomycota means it utilizes a microscopic sac called an ascus.
Right, and functionally, this ascus acts like a pressurized biological cannon.
A cannon, like it shoots.
Basically, yeah. When the conditions are right, pressure builds up inside this sac until it just bursts. It launches fungal spores into the winter air, and they just drift along until they land on their specific target.
And the researchers use this term entomopathogenic to describe it, right?
Entomopathogenic. It means it's a pathogen that specifically attacks insects.
So these spores, they don't just land on the soil and grow like normal mushrooms.
No, not at all. They land on the exoskeletons of Lepidopteran larvae. So we're talking moths and butterflies.
Mainly caterpillars. I mean, I think the paper said it also targets the pupa of other insects and spiders, too.
Right, spiders as well. And once a spore lands on a caterpillar, it uses these specialized enzymes to literally dissolve a tiny hole in the insect's armor.
Oh, wow. It melts its way in.
Exactly. It flips inside, and it just takes up residence.
Meanwhile, the caterpillar is crawling around completely unaware that it has been boarded by a biological hijacker.
Totally clueless.
Yeah.
And during the winter months, the fungus just hibernates inside the host.
Just waiting.
Right. Waiting and slowly consuming its internal nutrients while the insect is, in its pupal stage.
And then, as summer arrives, the fungus completes its hostile takeover.
Yeah, that's when things get really gruesome.
It sprouts a fruiting body, a literal mushroom stalk, right out of the dead insect's head.
It's incredible. And the researchers actually mention the literal translation of its traditional name, which is winterworm summergrass.
Winterworm summergrass. I mean, that is incredibly descriptive.
It really is, because in the winter, it literally looks like a mummified worm.
Right.
But in the summer, it looks just like a tiny blade of grass sprouting from the earth.
And the scientific name is just as literal, actually. Cordyceps comes from the Latin words cord, which means club, and ceps, meaning head.
Which perfectly describes the shape of that club-headed stalk bursting forth from the host.
What fascinates me, though, is the mechanics of that invasion. I mean, the caterpillar isn't just a passive vessel, right?
No, not at all. Its immune system is actively trying to kill the fungal invader.
So it's a war in there.
Oh, a total microscopic war. What's fascinating here is how nature's ruthlessness is essentially a biological factory.
A factory making medicine.
Well, making weapons first. When the fungus breaches the exoskeleton, the insect's immune system floods its own body with antimicrobial peptides. It's desperately trying to destroy the infection.
So the fungus has to fight back to survive.
Exactly. To survive, the fungus has to rapidly synthesize these highly complex, novel biometabolites.
It essentially manufactures localized chemical weapons just to suppress the caterpillar's immune response.
Right, it shuts down the insect's cellular repair mechanism so it can sustain its own growth.
That is wild. The fungus is engineering incredibly potent immunosuppressants and cellular disruptors just to win a microscopic turf war inside a bug.
And we're discovering that those exact same chemical weapons, when isolated, have miraculous effects on human biology.
We are literally piggybacking on millions of years of evolutionary chemical warfare.
Which brings us to the geography, actually, because this evolutionary war requires a very specific battlefield.
Right, the environment matters a lot.
It does. The Cordyceps genus is found globally, but the highly prized varieties, like Cordyceps sinensis, they are prominent in the subalpine grassy lands of the Himalayas.
The research specifically highlights these high-altitude villages, like Sutol and Kanal in the Chamoli district of Uttarakhand in India.
Yeah, where it's locally known as Kiragas.
Kiragas, right. We are talking about brutal, high-altitude environments here. The air is thin, the temperatures are freezing.
The ecological constraints are incredibly narrow. The fungus requires a highly specific balance of soil moisture, temperature, and obviously host availability to trigger that fruiting body.
And that ecological bottleneck makes harvesting it a completely daunting task.
Oh, it's a nightmare to harvest. The fruiting body, that club head, is tiny. It barely pokes above the soil.
So you're looking for a brown stalk just a few centimeters long, hidden in vast fields of subalpine grass.
Attached to a subterranean mummified insect, no less. It requires an astonishing amount of labor.
Entire communities mobilize for this. The researchers note that collectors range from 15 to 65 years old.
Everyone gets involved.
Right. The economic incentive is so massive that entire villages dedicate their summers to just crawling through the freezing Himalayan grasses, meticulously hunting for this fungus.
Yeah, and due to its immense clinical and commercial value, it has earned the nicknames Himalayan Gold and Himalayan Viagra.
Himalayan gold. I mean, the clinical value is clearly what drives that astronomical price tag, but the historical context is just as compelling to me.
It's a huge piece of the puzzle.
That history actually brings up a really logical question for me. If this thing is microscopic, wildly rare, grows in freezing, inhospitable mountain ranges, and literally sprouts out of a dead bug,
Yeah.
what possessed ancient people to pick it up and consume it in the first place? I mean, nobody just stumbles across a fungus erupting from a caterpillar's head and decides to steep it in hot water on a whim.
No, definitely not on a whim. Ethnopharmacologists trace this back to the acute observational skills of early nomadic herders in the Himalayas.
Wait, herders, like observing their animals.
Exactly. They observed their yaks and sheep grazing on these specific subalpine grasses.
Okay.
And during certain times of the year, the animals that grazed in areas dense with cordyceps exhibited a massive surge in vitality, energy, and, well, reproductive behavior.
So the herders saw the yaks acting like they just drank a pot of espresso and investigated the pasture.
Right. And that's when they discovered the winterworm summergrass hidden in the soil.
That is amazing.
It is. And that localized observation basically kicked off a millennia-spanning history of medicinal use across Asia.
The review highlights how traditional healers in Western Nepal utilize Cordyceps sinensis for just an enormous variety of ailments.
It was almost like a panacea for them.
Yeah. They prescribed it for severe diarrhea, chronic headaches, persistent coughs, rheumatism, and even complex hepatic disorders. It was utilized as a broad-spectrum cure-all.
Which is wild when you think about it.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Because for a long time, the broader scientific community viewed ancient remedies with deep skepticism.
Oh, absolutely. They kind of dismissed folk medicine.
Right, but instead of dismissing the yak herders and traditional healers here, modern pharmacologists looked at the clinical outcomes and asked, okay, what is the molecular mechanism driving this?
They wanted the hard science.
Exactly. They moved away from consuming the whole mummified caterpillar and successfully isolated the specific, highly potent biometabolite responsible for the effects.
Cordycepin.
Yes, cordycepin.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, modern science isn't replacing ancient wisdom here. It is validating it by delineating the exact biomolecular mechanisms at play.
Because the nomadic herders knew that it worked.
Right, they saw the results. But Tuli, Sandhu, and Sharma's research is focused on how it works, so the active compounds can actually be synthesized and mass-produced.
So let's dive into the how, because the medical marvel of cordycepin is the core of this research.
Biochemically, cordycepin is known as 3-deoxyadenosine.
3'. deoxydenosine.
Okay, to anyone without a biochemistry degree, that just sounds like a random string of letters and numbers.
It totally does, but the mechanism behind that name is actually brilliant.
Let's break down the mechanics of 3-deoxydenosine now.
Okay, so every cell in your body needs to replicate its DNA and RNA to divide and survive, right?
Right. Basic biology.
Adenosine is one of the fundamental building blocks a nucleotide used to build those RNA chains.
Okay, I'm following.
Normal adenosine has an oxygen atom attached to its 3' carbon ring. That oxygen atom acts like a chemical hook, allowing the next building block in the sequence to attach to it.
But Cordycepin is 3-deoxydenosine, deoxy, meaning it is missing that specific oxygen atom.
Exactly. It is a biological counterfeit.
So it sneaks in.
It acts exactly like a normal adenosine molecule, so a rapidly dividing cell will pull it in and attach it to a growing RNA chain.
But because it lacks that crucial oxygen atom, that chemical hook, the next building block, cannot attach.
The chain is abruptly terminated.
It's like a zipper missing a tooth. That's a great analogy.
The cell is zipping along, copying its RNA, it hits the counterfeit Cordycepin block, and the whole mechanism just jams. The replication process is entirely broken.
And when a cell cannot complete its RNA synthesis, it triggers apoptosis.
Which is programmed cell death, right?
Yes, the cell effectively self-destructs.
Wow. Which perfectly explains its potent anti-cancer properties. I mean, cancer is fundamentally a disease of uncontrolled cellular replication.
Right, cancer cells are multiplying at a vastly accelerated rate compared to healthy cells.
Which means they are far more greedy for those building blocks.
Exactly. They're significantly more likely to grab the counterfeit cordycepin molecule out of the bloodstream.
They grab it, jam their own replication zippers, and self-destruct.
Meanwhile, healthy, slower dividing cells remain largely unaffected.
The elegance of that mechanism is just staggering to me.
It is. And remember, the fungus originally evolved this exact chain-terminating molecule to stop the caterpillar's immune cells from multiplying.
And we are now isolating that same weapon to selectively terminate human tumor cells.
It's incredible. And its pharmacological actions aren't even limited to oncology.
Right. The review details its impact across the hepatic, renal, cardiovascular, and immunological systems.
It's a very systemic compound.
But I do want to zero in on a specific statistic cited in the article regarding oncology because, well, I feel like it requires serious scrutiny.
Oh, the Borcher statistic.
Yes. The authors cite a study by Borchers et al., which suggests that over 2/3 of cancer-related deaths could potentially be prevented or reduced by modifying our diets with antioxidant-rich mushrooms.
That is a massive claim.
It is. I have to push back here. Preventing 2/3 of cancer-related deaths with mushrooms sounds like snake oil. I mean, cancer is wildly complex.
It really is.
Is the scientific community actually backing that level of potential, or is this just localized optimism in a review article?
This raises an important question, and honestly, your skepticism is entirely necessary here.
Okay, good. I'm not the only one.
No, definitely not. But you have to understand, the Borcher statistic is not describing a clinical trial where late-stage cancer is miraculously cured with a mushroom pill.
Okay, so what is it describing?
It is an epidemiological projection. It's based on population-level dietary habits. The key mechanism at play here isn't just the chain-terminating cordycepin.
Right.
It is the broader spectrum of potent dietary antioxidants found in the fungus.
We hear the word antioxidant thrown around in beverage commercials all the time, but mechanically, what is it actually doing to the hepatic and renal systems to prevent cancer from forming in the first place?
Well, cellular mutation is very often driven by oxidative stress.
Okay.
As your hepatic and renal systems filter toxins, they generate free radicals. These are highly unstable molecules that just crash into healthy cells, damaging their DNA.
And over decades, that localized DNA damage is what eventually mutates a healthy cell into a malignant tumor.
Exactly. Antioxidants operate by chemically neutralizing those free radicals before they can cause that DNA damage.
Oh, I see. So the epidemiological argument is that integrating these highly potent fungal antioxidants into a lifelong diet drastically reduces the baseline oxidative stress on the organs.
You got it. It's essentially lowering the mathematical probability that a cancer-causing mutation will ever occur.
So it isn't a cure. It is systemic molecular armor.
That's a perfect way to put it. Molecular armor.
Oh.
And the scientific community fully backs the mechanism of action.
Because we can see it working.
Right. We can actively observe Cordycepin inhibiting tumor growth and antioxidants neutralizing free radicals in laboratory settings.
The current hurdle is application, though, right?
Yes. The goal of ongoing research is to map these molecular pathways perfectly so pharmacologists can improve bioactivity, figure out precise dosing, and eventually scale up production.
Because right now, relying on villagers to find tiny mummified caterpillars in the Himalayas is not a scalable public health strategy.
Definitely not scalable. The objective is to transition Cordycepin from a rare, prohibitively expensive Himalayan gold into an accessible, mass-produced, synthesized medicine.
Something utilized in oncology wards worldwide.
Exactly. The trajectory of this single molecule is just incredible.
It really is. From an evolutionary weapon utilized by a parasitic fungus to a folk remedy discovered by yak herders.
To a deeply understood biometabolite capable of breaking the replication chains of cancer cells.
So what does this all mean? For you, listening right now, it is a visceral reminder that the natural world is a giant, largely untapped pharmacy.
It really is.
We started this deep dive exploring a microscopic spore launching from an ascus sac, drifting through the winter air to hijack a caterpillar.
A brutal biological invasion.
Which necessitates a chemical warfare factory just churning out novel compounds to suppress a host. And human ingenuity has taken that evolutionary violence, mapped its molecular mechanisms, and isolated a compound that could literally revolutionize how we approach oncology and systemic information.
It proves that some of the most profound medical breakthroughs don't necessarily originate in sterile laboratories.
Right. They are forged in the messy, competitive fight for survival in the wild.
Which leaves you with one final thought to consider today.
Oh, what's that?
Well, we spent this deep dive talking about the extreme difficulty of harvesting cordyceps from the wild.
Yeah, crawling through the freezing subalpine grass.
But with climate change rapidly altering the fragile, freezing ecosystems of the Himalayas, the narrow ecological window required for this fungus to thrive is shrinking fast.
Oh, wow. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. Himalayan gold is rapidly disappearing. So the scientific race isn't just to understand the pharmacology of Cordycepin anymore.
It's a race against time.
It is a race to fully sequence and synthetically brew it in a lab before the original master chemist, the zombie fungus itself, goes entirely extinct. And it makes you wonder, how many other life-saving treatments are currently hidden in the bizarre, overlooked corners of the natural world, just waiting for us to notice them before they're gone?